Hi! Today I'm going to be doing my July wrap-up. I have read a total of 28 books this month. 15 of them I'll be talking about today, and then I'm just going to go ahead and go over the 13 that I read in the first couple weeks of the month that I went over in my mid-month wrap-up. I'm just going to tell you the titles and ratings like usual. Making Up, 4 stars. House of Salt and Sorrows, DNF. Love Story, 4 stars. A Lesson in Thorns, 5 stars. Boyfriend Material, DNF. Kill Switch, 4 stars. Right, 5 stars. The Deception, 4 stars. American King, 4 stars. Love Hacked, 4 stars. The Beast, 4 stars. Twisted Pride, 4 stars. How to Walk Away, 3.5 stars. So the second half of the month was not that great. I had a lot of 3.5 stars, and I think I had one more DNF, maybe 2. I can't remember right now. I've got it written down, but wasn't as great as the first half of the month, and I haven't had like this kind of month in a while, because a lot of times, I mean, if it's a 3.5 star, I will continue reading it. But if it's like just gonna be a 3 star, unless I'm listening to it via audio, a lot of times I'll just DNF it because I just don't want to waste my time on a 3-star book. I mean, I know it's 3 stars isn't necessarily bad. Sorry if you can hear my dog whining. My husband's outside and he wants to go outside. But normally, like, 3-star books aren't terrible. They're not bad books. I just would rather read a 4 or 5-star book. So a lot of times if I think it's just gonna be 3 stars, I'll just DNF it. So, but let's just go ahead and get into the books that I read the second half of July. The first book I read the second half of July was Learn My Lesson by Katie Robert. This is the second book in the Wicked Villains series. This book follows Hercules and Hades and Meg. It's a polyamorous relationship. There is some BDSM in it. It's adult romance, if I didn't mention that already, but this one I gave 4 stars. I liked it probably a little bit better even than the first one in the series, but these are just, you need a little bit more in my opinion. Like, they're not super long. I mean, they're not super short either, but I just feel like for what she's trying to accomplish, you need a little bit more to make it that 5-star book. You need a little bit more depth to it, I think. So still super good book. I will still continue with the series 100%, but I just feel like they need a little bit more. Next, I read Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This book is a fantasy. This is a retelling, kind of. It's the origin story of the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. And this I gave 2.5 stars. This was just not it for me. I really just didn't like it. I mean, there's not really much more for me to say. There was a lot going on. There were things going on the whole time, but I was still just super bored. And I don't know, it wasn't for me. It's not a bad book, it just wasn't for me. Now, the naked cover, look at that. That's so cool. I love the cover. But it didn't make me like the book. So this one. Next, I read Fling by Jana Aston. This is the novella after Right and before Trust. So it's 2.5 in the Cafe series. And I loved this. I give it 4 stars. This is an adult romance. This follows 2 characters that kind of have a like interest in each other in Right, the book before this. So this one I really, really enjoyed. This is a workplace romance. This is kind of employer-employee. He's kind of her boss. But it has a cute meet cute, just like most of these books do. They end up in a meeting together, and her friend, the heroine's friend, gives her this like sex quiz that she makes up while they're bored at their meeting, and the heroine takes the quiz, and her boss ends up with the quiz, and he knows it's about him because his name is on the quiz. So he kind of tries to figure out who took the quiz, who it was. He's trying to look at people's handwriting and stuff because he's already interested in her. He just hasn't told her. So he's hoping it's her, but there's not much more I can say because it is a novella. It's not very long, so I don't want to spoil anything. But I absolutely loved this, and if you're reading the Cafe series, absolutely read the novella as well. Next, I read The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. This is their newest release. This I gave 3.5 stars. This one did let me down a little bit because I felt like it could have been so good and it just wasn't quite there for me, but I still finished it. I still enjoyed my time reading it. It just wasn't my favorite. But this is about this man named River who creates this matchmaking site using DNA and statistics, pretty much, where you give your DNA sample and they find your perfect match for you that way. The heroine is not interested in dating at all. She's a single mother. She's not interested in dating. She's works in data and statistics, and her best friend wants her to kind of start dating again, so she convinces her to do this trial kind of the new DNA matchmaking site and given their samples. Well, turns out the heroine is a 98% match with River, the founder and owner of this science-based matchmaking site. And they kind of already know each other a little bit from an encounter they had previously, and they don't like each other. So it's enemies to lovers. And I do think it's worth the read if it's something you think you would like. It just wasn't like super there for me, but I still think it's worth reading if it sounds like something you would want to read. Next, I read Second Life by Jacqueline Reiswig. This is an adult romance. This I gave 3.5 stars. This, if you're looking for a romance with no smut, no sex, nothing like that, this is the romance for you. It has none of that stuff at all in it. I think they only kissed like once or twice, maybe. So this is definitely just romance. There's no erotica or anything like that in it. But this is about this woman who is from Indianapolis, which I believe the author's from Indianapolis as well, which I'm from around there, so that's kind of cool. I don't live in Indianapolis, but I live in Indiana, so I thought it was really, really cool that the heroine was from Indianapolis, because that like never happens. But she decides to go on a trip to London by herself, and when she's on the tube, she meets her celebrity crush. And then the tube explodes. And she has to try to save his life and ends up having to take drastic measures to save his life. And then they take him to the hospital, her to a different hospital, and he didn't even catch her name before they had to separate. So it's kind of this situation where he's trying to find her, she's trying to move on with her life, and then they end up reconnecting again, and it was pretty good. I just feel like there was a lot of conveniences for what happens. Like, who meets their celebrity crush? And then the tube explodes. And then she has to save his life. And then he's trying to find her. Like, that's so unrealistic, which I know books don't have to be realistic, but it was like kind of crazy, all the different things that were happening. So that's why I gave it 3.5 stars. But if it's something that you like celebrity type romances, I would recommend it. Next, I read Unloved by Katie Regnery. This is an adult romance that I gave 5 stars. I loved this book. This is about this woman who goes on a trail and is attacked by this man, and this other man comes and saves her and takes her to his cabin to take care of her and mend her back to health. And he is the son of a serial killer. So he is like afraid that he's got the serial killer gene and that he shouldn't be with anyone because he's afraid he's gonna end up hurting them. So he's isolated himself in this cabin up in the mountains, and it's their romance together. And I thought it was so good. It was so freaking good. I 100% recommend you read it. And I know some people don't like the twist that happens at the end, but I loved it. So I 100% recommend this book. Next, I read Walk of Shame by Lauren Lane. This is the Love Unexpectedly series, book number 4. And this is another adult romance that I gave 3.5 stars. So this one is about this woman who's like a New York socialite. She's just this party girl who lives off her inheritance. And the hero is a divorce lawyer, and they are enemies to lovers. So they always are bickering, arguing with each other, but they don't really see each other often. The only time they see each other is like 5 a.m. when he's on his way to the gym and she's coming home for the night from being out partying, pretty much. So this one is totally like opposites attract type situation, and it just wasn't quite all there for me. I don't regret reading it, but it's not my favorite either. It's another one that's just kind of all right. Next, I read Blood Vow by J.R. Ward. This is the second book in the Black Dagger Legacy series, and this I gave 4.5 stars. I really can't tell you anything about this one at all. You guys know I'm just reading them and trying to get through the series because I really enjoy it, but it's definitely one that you have to read in order, so there's not really anything I can tell you about it. But I really love this one. Next, I read Savage by Nicole Staten. This is an adult romance. I think this might be a very loose Beauty and the Beast retelling. But this is about this man who was attacked and had his face all scarred up and faked his death, and has now lived in his like huge house, locked away in the dark where nobody has seen him since the accident 2 years ago. And he has this assistant who helps him kind of out in the regular world to keep people thinking he died. And so these people don't come back after him, and that he can find them and kill them and, you know, all that nonsense. But because he's locked away in his room, he has his assistant or partner or whatever you want to call him go out and find him these women for him to sleep with, and they sign like contracts and NDAs and stuff. And I mean, he still doesn't turn the lights on. They still don't know what he looks like, and they don't know his real name or anything like that. But he has them brought into him pretty much to sleep with no emotional connection. And the heroine in this story is like super down on her luck and needs money to help pay to take care of her grandmother. So she gets approached by the hero's assistant in a bar and initially tells him no, she's not gonna do that. She's not gonna sign up for sex with some man for money. But after some things happen, she really needs the money. And so she takes him up on the offer. And the romance is obviously between her and the hero who's up in his room. So this one I gave 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I just felt like it needed a little bit more editing, and I feel like the ending should have been drug out a little bit more. I felt like the ending was very rushed, and it needed, like I said, a little bit more editing. There were some grammatical errors and things like that were just kind of, you could tell were just looked over, that it wasn't caught. They were super simple things, misspellings, things like that just shouldn't have been in there. So I do think it needed a little bit more work, but I still really enjoy it, and I do think it is 100% worth the read. Like, I really enjoyed my time reading this. Next, I read I Flipping Love You by Helena Hunting. This is Shacking Up number 3, and this one I gave 3.5 stars. This is another adult romance, and this is about the heroine who is in real estate with her sister, and they're trying to gain capital so they can start flipping houses so they can make more money. And the hero is a lawyer who is helping his brother for the summer try to flip houses. He's helping renovate the houses that his brother is buying and selling. So that's how they kind of meet each other, is through that situation. And the hero and his brother end up starting to buy houses out from underneath the two sisters. And so it starts a little bit of a rivalry, but it's not long. It's not really enemies to lovers. And you see their relationship blossom through that. So this one was just okay. It was my least favorite of the series, of the Shacking Up series. So honestly, you could probably skip it. Next, I read Twisted Hearts by Cora Riley. This is the Kimura Chronicles number 5. This one I gave 4 stars, but it's still my least favorite of the bunch. Again, I can't really tell you anything about it because it follows the same characters that were in previous books, and I don't want to like spoil anything, but this one is about Savio, if you do read the series, and he was just kind of mean and really, I mean, just I didn't like it. They were like engaged to be married but not really together, and he's out like sleeping with a bunch of other people, and I just wasn't for me. So I still really liked it, more so than I would ever like another book like this, because I like the series so much, so I still gave it 4 stars, but it was my least favorite of all of them. Next, I tried to read Silver in the Wood by Emily Tesh. This is a fantasy, it's a novella, and I DNF'd it at 40%, and I couldn't tell you a single thing about what it's about. I don't remember it all, nor did I really know what was going on while I was reading it because I was so bored. So Next, I read Barbarian Lover by Ruby Dixon. This is the Ice Planet Barbarians number 3, I believe. Or is it 4? I think it's 3. But this one I give 3.5 stars. This one follows another set of characters from the same world where you've got the alien hero and the human woman that they fall in love with. So this one was my least favorite of the ones I've read so far in this series as well. I still like this series, but this is definitely one that I'm just gonna kind of pick up when I need a really short, quick audiobook, because the audiobooks are only like 5 hours usually. So it's just gonna be one that I pick up when I don't have a lot of listening time, but I want to listen to something. But it's not gonna be one that I'm like actively trying to finish the series, because there are like 20 books in the series or close to it anyway, and I just don't love them quite enough to like want to binge it. They're just kind of like filler books for me. Then I read A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This I gave 5 stars. I love this series, but they almost lost me at the end of this book. And obviously if you've read this book, you know what happens, but oh, I was about to be so pissed. I was gonna be so mad. And then they saved it in that last chapter. So I'm so happy that it ended the way that it did, because if not, I was gonna hate read A Court of Wings and Ruin because I was gonna be so pissed. But I'm so excited. I have my hold in at the library. It's still gonna be probably like a month before I get it. So I probably won't be able to read it in August, but I'm so looking forward to when I do get that from the library. The last book I read was The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This I gave 3.5 stars as well. This one again let me down some. This is about these 2 people who work in radio, and they pretend to be exes so they can have this talk show where 2 exes give relationship and dating advice. And they're enemies to lovers. It wasn't terrible. I still read it all. I didn't hate my time reading it, but I kind of feel like most people do, where it was just a little bit underwhelming. So this one was all right, not the best. I don't know that I'll read anything else by the author, just because it was just like, it was all right. But those are all the books that I read this month. Please let me know if you've read any of them or your thoughts on them. I would love to know. But that is everything for me this time. I will see you all next time. Bye.